Hello world, welcome to the Unchristian Network. It's your boy Mmusi Maimane. I'm your host today. Thank you so much for joining us once again, and I appreciate you just being part of this family, helping us to grow, subscribing when we ask you, commenting and sharing and doing all the nice things that makes the parts to happen. Please continue to do that. Share this episode. I believe that somebody is going to be greatly impacted by it because we bring you great, insightful conversations, and today is no different. I've got an amazing guest that I'm going to get to know this morning, and we're going to talk about her life and why she does what she does and who she is and where she comes from. Ladies and gentlemen, this morning we have Miss Ayanda Allie in the house, and we're going to get to know her a bit, so make sure that you stay tuned. Our episode today is sponsored by Godana Attorneys Incorporated in Pretoria. For all your legal needs, please get hold of them. The details are on the screen, and you'll see some of their advertising as we go on as well. Ayanda, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be with you. Finally, you
didn't
say
here
in the intro, we've been. But in a short space of time, things have changed a lot.
So much has happened.
So much
From the time I first started to talk to you about coming, a book came out. And I was like, oh, nice. This will be nice for our conversation. And then a few months later, politics. Oh, this is a twist.
Wait a minute. Plot twist. Yeah.
Exactly. How have the past few weeks been?
They've been interesting. Yep. I think it's been a phenomenal time of growth, of reflection, of re-evaluating just, who you are as an individual, what you hope to contribute to society, the people who are surrounding you, the activists, the members from BOSA. It really, really has helped to quicken what you already have innate in you, a strong sense of justice, a desire to see a better South Africa. Yeah. But now this has said it can no longer be just conversations you're having at the water cooler or at the braai or a kishini.
Serious now.
Now it's serious. You can't just be saying, I think we should do this. Yeah. What you say carries weight. And
now you're actually quoted.
Now you're being quoted. Yeah. Now you're viral.
You could be quoted for saying, I don't like cinnamon rolls from this shop. Yeah. And they'll Ayanda Allie paying bashes.
So the stakes are high. The stakes are high, but it's good. It's been a really good time, just of introspection and saying, what do you stand for? What do you believe? Yeah. What are you willing to put your name, your life, your body on the line for? Sure. Your reputation on your, on the line. What are you willing to give up for what you believe in? And so this past couple of weeks has made me think about that. What am I willing to give up for what I believe in?
One thing I was thinking about in context of yourself and your political journey now is that it's just the weight of the permanence of it. This is not a hobby. You just jump in and jump out, or you join this club. There's a sense of permanence. Of course, political affiliations and memberships can join, but there is a sense of permanence if you're going to be a credible voice.
One thing that my mentor said when I toyed with the idea of joining politics, I was like, what do you think? And you rightfully said earlier on that, I've done quite a lot. I used my voice as an activist to write an album, write some songs, and to perform those songs about Marikana, about race relations, about poverty, about unemployment, about fees must fall. So I used that platform. I wrote a book for social entrepreneurs and active citizens to say, guys, this is what we need to do to change the country. Yep. So when I then go to him and I say, hi, me again.
There's this now.
There's this thing that I'm thinking about, that I'm really feeling an urge to. What do you think about politics? And he actually said to me, I think it's great. You're a voice that would lend a lot to the current narrative and the discourse, the debates that are going around.
Sure.
I think people would love to engage and critique even what you have to say, but you have to be in it for the long haul.
That's it.
So
That's
he
it.
did say that, your days of just waking up in the morning and saying, or so need to be behind you, because this one is going to be defining. This can't be a passion project. It can't be something you do on the side or an auxiliary thing. This has to be something that is going to direct the trajectory of your life. Choose wisely, be led, pray about it, understand the terrain that you're going into, and then make the decision and follow through. So you're right. There's a sense of permanency that is involved in this. And so when I thought about it, reflected, prayed, had conversations, and then finally decided this is what I'm going to do, I did it with the full understanding of the landscape and the nature of politics in South Africa, with a full understanding of who I want to align myself with and why and what their values and beliefs are. So there is a sense of permanency. So I said to the colleagues as well, whether it's the structures or or whatever, but I'm here, and I'm here for the long haul, and I'm here to do that which you would like me to do in order to serve.
Sure. And why build one South Africa?
I love Build One South Africa because they have implemented a model that is new to South Africa, first of its kind. We are seeing it being replicated by other political parties, which I think is very affirming, and really proves that we're onto a winning formula. I love it because it's a bottom-up approach to governance. It's people who are on the ground, who have sacrifice whatever little that they had to move the community forward. It's people who had feeding schemes, people who had a youth organization like myself, people who have been making changes and transformation in the legal fraternity. People first. People who are in, one of our youth leaders, Henry is a nurse. He's in the medical field and he's leading that change to say, how do we treat patients? What do we do? There are people who are in business as entrepreneurs, people who are in academia. All these people in different spheres of society who understand their responsibility as citizens to do something, to say something, and these people, when they come together under an umbrella that is a political formation contesting the elections, these are people with experience. These are people with the scars to show what was on the ground. I've been there. These are people who are passionate about the country, so much so that they sacrifice. Politics today is about what can I get. But these are people who are saying, this is what I've given. And so that's what attracted me to Build One South Africa. Of course, Mmusi and I went to Allen Glen High School together.
Interesting.
Yeah. So when he just after he left, I joined, and I heard of this myth of this guy who was here, etc. So when I was then in high school, he came and he gave a talk, and I was the deputy head girl there. So our paths crossed, now and then, and then in professional field, we got to interact with each other. I met Nobuntu, loved Nobuntu, Firehouse.
Shout out Nobuntu,
oh my goodness,
friend of the podcast.
Oh my God, yeah, you've had her here before.
Yeah, we have
definitely. So and then you get to, over and above this movement of people and what they've done, you get to know the leadership. You get to know the values. You get to know their policies. And for me, everything just aligned. And I was like,
I want to go back, and we'll come back to all of these things that you have been doing and are doing. Go back a bit to that little girl who was deputy head girl.
Yeah.
What was happening in that girl's life?
Man.
How was she? What kind of a home did she grow up in? And, what happened back then that formed the woman today?
Oh, no. So I grew up in Dobsonville.
Yeah, right.
Soweto.
Hey.
And my mother was a nurse and became a stay-at-home mom.
My mom too was a nurse.
Was she really? Shout out to the nurses, because it's real.
Tell me if it's the same for you. Every time I get a little sick, I know exactly what medication to give myself and all of that.
No, absolutely.
And we will pray, but I need something.
She would pray, and then she would tell you what to take. But even like the natural alternatives, like, so she'll say, drink some milk because I feel like une calcium deficiency. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she'd have those home remedies.
And we grew up with these things.
Yeah. So she'd have the home remedies, and then when you need paracetamol or whatever, then she'd say, okay, you need to take this, take half, So you'd have that, and then that order.
Exactly. I do that with my kids now. Funny enough, yeah. Anyway,
so funny. The things that irk us the most about our parents are the things that we emulate.
Stick with us. Anyway,
that's life. My dad was a taxi operator. He owned a small fleet of taxis. So we had an opportunity to go to bed with a full tummy. We had clothes on our backs. We had a roof over our head. We were not the Oppenheimers, but we had enough for us to have a decent upbringing. But that wasn't the reality of all the people around me.
Definitely.
Because some of the friends that you play with, you realize they are not from the same background as you.
Yes.
Their home is not the same as yours. And your story actually is an anomaly. You can count how many bangeni ikolo multiracial schools, right? So we were among the first. Of course, now it's different in the township, but we were among the first that privilege allowed me to go to school in suburbia. So I'd wake up in the morning, set up Vili, sakeza in his bambi taxi, Rodipots from Rodipots is Ellen Klein. And Maufika Ellen Klein, some of your friends would drive a Porsche. Guhle man, when they invite you to birthday parties, you're like, how?
Tough.
Ganti, Guinea, you know? And you begin to see that there are two different worlds that we exist in that run parallel.
Yes.
And your experience at home is not the same as your experience at school. And as a child, and I always say this, I didn't know how to say it, and I didn't know what was wrong.
Sure.
I didn't have that vocabulary. But I had an understanding in me that would always wrestle against this reality that I'm saying. That's the time Lauren Hill. Lauren Hill is like power to the people, every ghetto, every city, you know. And so you grow up. I studied journalism. I think to myself, I feel like I have something to say about what I see. My career in journalism was blessed. God was really good, opened up doors. I got to learn, I got to study. After journalism, that thing, that little girl, Okulele Topsenville, was still nagging to say, Mabwele Kaya. And people see you, and and you're like, how are you asking me? You were smarter than me growing up. You were that guy. And you realize we become a victim of our circumstances, and we are limited by access to opportunity or a lack thereof. And a lot of the people in the township where I grew up who were smart, even smarter than me at some time, more talented, more gifted, more, energetic in terms of wanting to succeed, there was sort of a cap over their head because they could only progress in as far as their parents could pay their fees or in as far as situation allowed them. So we then decided, let us try and work with the youngsters in the community to give them those opportunities. Esas toilet in Ellen Glen. Esas toilet because we went to varsity. If we level the playing field, trust me, are smart.
Do you think that's when the activist was born
in you? That's really when the activism in me, surfaced, because there was a rumbling in my spirit to say, let's do something. And I think I was fortunate because I was met by young people who had that same zeal, that same energy. And that's how we started Bukobami Youth Center. So that naughty child who was energetic and going to school, etc., and eventually became a leader. Started to get a sense of responsibility and whatever privilege you have. And I had privilege to it's different extent. I mean, the privilege I had is different to a privilege that a white male would have, for example, but it's privilege nonetheless. And whatever privilege you have a responsibility, a debt to society. The Bible calls it, to whom much is given, much also is required. So when we go back and look to start Bukobam Youth Center, I think that's where the sense of responsibility really was reignited over and above that deputy head girl.
What do you think made the difference between how your story ended up versus the girl that you just described in the township who didn't experience the breakthrough in life? Because similar circumstances, yes, there was that level of privilege, being part of the first generation of black young kids to go to multiracial schools. I've got a similar story. being in a rich environment in suburbs, whereas Ekaya, you're not that rich.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a big difference. I just made it here to this school. But someone else's story is different. They're on drugs today, maybe, or people can be calling them a failure. What made Ayanda different, that her trajectory of life turned out this way?
Yeah. I think it's important to note that we live in systems and subsystems, and there's a system that was the education system that I existed in, that opened up doors, that gave you understanding, that had limited numbers of children in a classroom, where if you have a problem with something, you're given that attention and you're able to find resolution. So there's that one system that's working in your favor. There are systems and subsystems when we talk about the family background and upbringing. I had a mom and a dad. Some of my friends grew up with ugogo, or they grew up no antus banban. So that system, you have the education system that's worked in my advantage, that maybe didn't work to the advantage of my friend Ebengena down the road. Then the family situation where I have both parents in the house, there's income that's coming in. That's the third system, the economics. I'm able to say, oh, but you go open day Monash in can I go? And ugogo doesn't have to think twice. Mali yegrosa, or I keep this money and then the rest of the family eats it. Those are the kinds of decisions that have to be made, right? So we have that economic environment that enables me to be able to go and explore what I want to do. Then there's things like, oh, I want to be a journalist, mom. And even though my parents at first were just like, le communication, but there was that freedom, that latitude, the safety net to say, and then if you fail, we'll support you in another way. Some kids don't have that luxury. Matric, we have suffered to get you to matric.
And we have one shot to get out of this.
There's an opening at a retail center, you better go and get a job. Because asikwazi basubhadalelwa ba uye varsity. And even if we say now, there's NAFSAs, there's this, there's that, like I said earlier, it comes late if it does come at all. The spaces in the varsity are so full at the moment that you have to be outstanding to get there. And to be outstanding, that first system of education needs to have function. And so you then see a cocktail of disaster working against someone who is able, who is passionate, who is talented, who is gifted. Whereas there's an Ayanda, and the systems and subsystems in her life gave her an advantage. And then the rest is then up to you. Whether you take that advantage, you build on it and you go. Whereas the law, who is on a deficit, as hard as they try, they will only get to a certain level. Whereas when you're able to excel, not because you are any smarter or better. So there are those systems that work. And then I think also the faith element. The faith element where you are taught. If faith, what it does is it gives you grit. It gives you the wherewithal to know an internal locus of control that this God who's within you is able to help you.
There's an internal compass.
There's an internal compass.
Even when parents are not there.
Exactly.
Right,
and so I think if you look at all those, like I said, the systems and the subsystems that worked, they worked to my advantage. So while you can say, oh no, I succeeded because I'm just awesome, no man is an island. There are things that work to your advantage. God ordained or that just happened to fall into place for you. You leverage off of that. And I think that was my story.
I must say, your move from being in front of the camera, as far as television and news anchoring and news journalists, your move took me by surprise, because I thought this is going to be one of our journalism legends in the country in terms of how your career is going to go and all of that. What informed that decision to say, now I'm calling it quits in front of the camera, telling the news? I will go on the camera for other things, but my time is up here. Which year was that again?
Sure. When did I leave broadcasting news? I want to say, 10 years,
I
think Morning Live was my last.
That was
news stint. No, I went to ENCA again.
After that,
I went to ENCA again, and then I also have to remind myself that I've been busy. I grew tired of telling stories and not finding solutions. And I have to say that carefully because I don't want to minimize the role of the media in telling stories. The role of the media is how we find out about Nkandla. It's how we find out about no water and sanitation and poorly maintained sewage systems in the middle of somewhere that is far away. So the role of the media is critical. It's fundamental. And it must remain. We need storytellers that speak truth to power, that hold politicians and leaders to account, and that hold a mirror to society so we see who we are. But for me, in terms of my upbringing, in terms of my personality, in terms of just how I'm made, my wiring, I couldn't sit down. It's the same thing that drove us to start Ibukobam, to say, hey, you're reading all the stories about what's going on in townships and in rural areas. Let's start a youth center. So that very same thing in me said, I go into government, from source,
inside,
from Benakant, you know. And I know people are like, how are you going to fix things as a spokesperson? The role of a spokesperson, I have to put my coffee down for this. A spokesperson, when done correctly, that role, you become a conduit from the leadership, your political principal, the department, those who are tasked with operating and executing, and the constituency, the populace. But it's not a one-way stream. People think you just take information, and you spin it, and you tell people, hi, this is what the minister says. You also have to have your ear to the ground, listen to what those concerns are, understand what people are going through, what are the hot topics, what are the key issues. You also have to carry yourself in a manner that when you speak on behalf of someone, people are able to calm down and to listen and to understand, which, okay, let's give her the benefit of the doubt, and by extension, the political principle. You then take the concerns of the people and you are able to then say, without even going to the principal, sometimes he may never know, but you have resolved an issue, you have settled the matter, you have fixed a dispute there. That is pivotal. And sometimes it can be mediated, sometimes it's not mediated. People had my personal number. To date, people are still like, hi, I can't get a driver's license. I'm like, no, it's not me anymore, baby, sorry.
Oh my
you know,
goodness.
You get calls. I mean, during COVID, people would call, my husband is stuck gupi gupi. Please, can you help so and so? That's not a matter where you're speaking on behalf of the minister or you're doing that, but you're helping. And that's why you have to have your ear to the ground. You have to be in touch with people. And I would be able to go into, and I think my background has to do with that, go into a hot situation, no takes, and switch languages with Tswana, if we Tswana, that was situation ko Mamelodi. Or ke kopa re bueng hantle, re bueng ka tlhompho, re utlwane hore what do we need to do? Then you switch it up from there. You're able to speak to Abantwana is Lalin, somewhere in the Eastern Cape where you'll be delivering bicycles. So you then think to yourself, that's such a beautiful position. That's why I applaud government communicators. It is a tough job. It is an all-consuming job. It is a 24/7 job because people get an idea at midnight and want to call you. Please, can you tell the minister? So I'm telling you, and COVID was such an interesting time. COVID, people would be stuck. Hi, they said I mustn't drive, but we are 2x and now you must now make a plan. This person, okay, those kind of things. So when you enter that space, you enter with such noble intentions, at least I did, to say, how can I best serve? How can I best take information and give to my political principal so that he can be the best that he can be in that role? How can I take the information that he needs communicated and really disseminate that information, either through the media or on the ground? And when you're in that position, it may seem like a menial task because you're not a minister. But it is so important. You are contributing in ways you don't understand. So shout out to the government communicators who are doing the most, who are often not listened to, even when they do try and give input. Because there you can really fix from within. You can say, guys, let's not communicate like that.
Let's not go there.
That's offensive to some other people. Let's hear them out. So that's that's I think the reason why I went into government, and I also really wanted to learn. I wanted to learn about governance. I wanted to learn about creating policies.
Yeah.
I wanted to understand how this huge machine that is government, that is complex and tricky, how does it work? How does it function? How can it be better? How can it be more agile so that the response times are quicker? How can it include the views of the people on the ground more so that people don't feel the need to go and protest and burn tires? And yes, there might be some politically motivated protests, but by and large, if you were providing the source or you were providing the service, there'd be no need for the protest. And so, I mean, I even ended up studying public administration, did my master's in there. So passionate was I about this space. And so I must also be grateful for the colleagues who worked with me at the department, who showed me the ropes. I was, quite au fait with comms. Having had an undergrad degree in communication science, another degree in community development, an honors degree in development studies. But in terms of the daily operations, it took a village, for all of us to hold hands and say, how would you like for us to communicate this? So shout out to them as well. Shout out to the government workers who are doing the most. So I think that's how I then decided I don't just want to talk about what's going wrong.
Do something.
I want to do something, and I want to understand why it's going wrong. If we understand why, we're able to fix it.
But you said you encountered extreme difficulties internally.
I did.
A lot of stone walls that you couldn't get past.
Yeah, I did. I think
what does it look like? Why is the environment that the ANC has created in government so difficult to solve the problems and build the kind of nation we want going forward? What have they created that is such a stumbling block?
I think initially when I got in, because I remember there was an anonymous letter that was circulating that was critiquing the appointment of the minister and his ministerial staff, myself included.
Of course.
And they just said he just fetched a celebrity from TV.
Oh,
what does she
goodness.
know? What does she know? She doesn't know anything. She doesn't write. She can't communicate. And all of that didn't bother me, because I was like, I mean, guys, I'm not being arrogant, but not that.
But that work needs a thick skin, right?
But what did get to me was a part where they said she's never even attended a BGM. She doesn't even know what a door-to-door is. She doesn't even know what a BGM is. And you know why it got to me? Because I really didn't know what a BGM was. So now I'm racking my brain. I'm thinking, let me go through some comms theory 101. Maybe I missed something that I'm supposed to know as a communicator. Maybe there is a competence or a platform or a mara manje ngiyasaba nokubuza abanye abantu ukuthi BGM, is it a platform? Is it machines? What is it? I eventually swallowed my pride. I think I went to the DG and I was like, what's a BGM? And he says, no, it's a branch general meeting. And I was upset. I was upset because the criteria that was used to gauge my efficacy was based on the fact that I had not attended a BGM, that I had not done a door-to-door. And that, it was like a pin drop your location to say, you'll circle back here again one day. It told me that there's still a mentality that says, for you to serve in government, you have to have served party, and that means some people are serving party for the nefarious reason of, I just want a position.
Exactly.
That is
clearly that is the trail. That's the path.
Then that means there are people who are joining the party just so they can get tenders. And to qualify for a tender doesn't necessarily mean you have to have the experience, the checks and balances, etc. It means you must have paid your dues. To qualify to be a spokesperson or whatever, it means you must have paid your dues. It means my qualifications mean nothing. My experience means nothing. The fact that I'm able to do the job means nothing because I'm young, I go PGM. And so, I mean, I was lucky in that I was able to work hard, to prove myself, to win the confidence of the team, of the department, to win the trust of whoever wrote the anonymous letter, because that fizzled out very quickly. There was no other anonymous letter after that. And I was able to to learn in the process and also share whatever little knowledge that I had to share. But it left in me that impression to say, if ufunuguya in any position that you think, oh, I aspire to be this, I must first pledge allegiance.
Yeah.
Here.
Let's kiss the ring.
So I must kiss the ring.
Yeah.
And I ask myself, how many skilled, competent, passionate, qualified people are out there and not getting positions because they are not attending BGMs. You see? And that says to me, if you want to fix the country, you have to have a meritocracy. You have to have people who can, who are willing, who are able, and have them in those positions and push aside politics. And say to them, we want you to work, run this department, run this agency, run this entity, deliver. Ugo to vote, that's you. But deliver. So I mean, that for me was something that I thought needs to change in terms of the culture, in terms of the culture of the ruling party, to say, let's make sure we tap into all these people that you have, they've created abontintwalo. Let's make sure that you're able to give abontintwalo imisebenzi, not based on whether or not they're card-carrying members, but based on whether or not they can do the job. They're skilled, they're qualified, they have the capacity.
And when you consider the state of how our nation is today, what is the real state of the nation?
Guys, when I was in school, we read a book named Charles Dickens, A Tale of Two Cities. Uti, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. That's where we are as South Africa.
That's interesting.
It was the best of times because those who have amassed wealth, legally and otherwise, have a lot of it. You see it in Sandton. You see it on social media. We are seeing abantu benza reveal. Hey, I'm a posh. Hey, I'm in Shampopo.
Crazy.
Hey, wada. Hey, girls,
the equality gap seems to be growing.
It's growing.
Yeah.
And then you have that. I mean, you just see Gureli, maybe it's a January 8 or whatever. Guambe nje. Just watch. Jonge from Iwatch, Jonge band, Sangwin, Jonge sometimes in a scarf, Kanye Ipini, Nabatenga Mapini is just from, around the corner, Ackermans or whatever. It won't do that. No. Need even label, Ipini, Ichoba, ne? Jonge the cars, all of that. It's the best of times. But it's the worst of times for those people who are being bussed in.
Who are coming to applaud this. And you can't say to people, vote differently or have different ideology just because you are sitting in an ivory tower now to say people don't vote this, don't vote that. It's their democratic right. I respect that. No problem. But you then go on the ground. You see people who live in structures where the sewage, I saw it with my own eyes. Wait a minute. Running sewage.
Through
a house.
Raw sewage. Through your yard. If you want to jump over, go to ngaphandle, you make yourself a makeshift bridge.
In your own yard.
Imagine the smell.
Oh my goodness.
Imagine the health concerns.
Yes.
Imagine the quality of life, the dignity, the decency of that kind of person in that situation.
My goodness.
Even the president himself, you can maybe disbelieve me and say, okay, utubonile Martinez na proof for sharp. The head of state himself, speaking at the January 8th statement, I was watching, said, we know the municipalities are struggling. Imali municipalities constantly get sent back to treasury.
Yeah, unused.
Underspending. Kuna sewage. We can talk about electricity. That's preaching to the converted. We all know what's happening there. Asusug. Water. I'm glad you had Nobuntu here because it's something she's also really passionate about. It's a ticking time bomb.
A big one.
I spoke to the minister in my previous role, contributing for a radio station, and he said, and I agree with him and I believe him actually, Bulk infrastructure has no issues. There are no problems with the dams, etc. In fact, they are building them even as we speak.
Okay.
And the State of the Nation, our president, we are building a dam in and no, we have no issues with the dam.
Yeah.
How do you get the water in my tap?
Yes. Which really,
Endlini.
it's what matters at the end of the day.
That's what
Have your
matters.
big dams, but is it in my house?
Is the water? Let me tell you, municipalities inherited infrastructure from the apartheid government. Infrastructure, yes, that was limited in terms of where the water would go to.
Yeah.
So there's an issue of expansion, firstly, but also number 2 of maintenance. Ama pipes, aya rusa, amanye aya leaka, water coming from bulk infrastructure. Majority of it, if not majority, I would maybe say 40%, 30-40% gets lost in the system. Gets absorbed by the earth.
Yeah.
I figure pumping.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then the infrastructure is not maintained. Then when there is money for you to expand and maintain, it gets sent back.
Right.
The president says we're aware. We're going to do consequence management. We're going to introduce 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let me tell you the same situation we have with electricity. We're going to have with water. Because it's not an overnight thing that gets fixed.
Yes.
Now that speaks to the culture of this system that is running and ruling the country.
I hear you.
That trickles from national to province, it ifike nago municipality.
Yes.
And it worries me because we become accustomed to it. Iba life. We say things like, yo, at least bathathe electricity ngo 8 ekuseni abantwana base bahambile.
Yeah.
Mabayithatha ngo
Yeah.
6 inbhora kanjani.
Eish. We start talking on social media.
Yeah.
When is your load shedding?
When is your load shedding?
Which load shedding is better?
Yeah.
We are actually discussing which level of lack of service delivery is the least.
The fact that we're calling it load shedding.
Yes.
Siyayihlobisa.
It's an outage. It's
a
blackout.
blackout. It's a power outage.
Yes.
We have to ration electricity.
Yes.
Siyayishare. Mawunayo wena electricity mina nginayo. Then we swap. There
are communities who are already rationing water.
They're rationing
It's already
water.
here. It's already here.
And then it says to me, that's the part that I feel like they don't get the urgency of it. So when I say it's the best of times, there's opportunity, there's growth, there's business, there are people who are flourishing. But the gap is too wide.
Yeah.
Those who are living difficult lives in South Africa, really it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough. So that is the state of the nation.
I hear you. With South Africa now trying to be a global player, a global influencer, we just took Israel to the ICJ.
International.
IJC. No, whatever. International Court.
Yes,
I said it right the
ICJ,
first time.
You were right the first time. Yeah.
As BOSA, are you saying, or you're not saying, we've got enough problems here? Why are we trying to play in other leagues, whereas our own Tintswalo doesn't have water here? What's, in terms of international policy, what's your position on what just happened with South Africa at the ICJ and just our general contribution on the global platform?
Yeah. I think when it comes to international policy, we've always been pro-peace. We've always been pro-human rights.
Yeah.
We've always advocated for us, in as much as we play our role as big brother in SADC and the rest of the continent, to do so in a way that is mindful of the people and not just our relations with the ruling or governing parties in those countries.
Right.
Because what we're seeing at the moment is a blanket acceptance. And it's as if some of these bodies that are there to safeguard human rights of the people, it's as if they are there just to pat each other on the back. I'm a heads of state. Oh, you're okay. You're okay. No one is asking the tough questions. Uguti, why is it that your citizens are fleeing your country? Why is it that your citizens feel the need that in order for them to give birth in a dignified and healthy manner and still live and have the baby live, that they must do so at Musina? Why is it that your people would risk life and limb crossing crocodile-infested rivers to come to a country? And please hear me out here. I in no way blame the people.
Yeah.
Because now, if I was in that position and it was a matter of life and death, and I was put between a rock and a hard place, I'm pregnant, and I know the chances of me dying giving birth are high. Now, perhaps I would risk it. So our rage and our anger to the people is misplaced. The rage and the anger should be among those who are supposed to be holding each other to account.
Yes.
As leaders.
Yes.
So we've seen Mmusi Maimane also supporting opposition parties who are being crushed by governing parties in different parts of the continent. He was arrested as well. This was before I joined BOSA. Literally was arrested and had to come back home. That is our stance when it comes to ensuring peace. You speak about the ICJ. It is no different. We are for peace. We do not condone violence in any way, shape, or form, regardless of which side of the spectrum. We want peace. We want talks. We want negotiations. We want not only for South Africa to be at peace, to be safe and secure. We want it for the continent. We want it for the world. And we've put our money where our mouth is. To the point of arrest. How dare you support? Tinapa, we don't support anything that is, advocating for people to vote differently. So that is our position. And I think it's important for us to realize that we have the capacity as South Africa to do both. It should not be either or. Even now we're talking about troops who have gone to, to combat there. And it should never be a question of, should we go and help outside but here at home? Because we have the potential and the capacity to do both and to do both successfully. If we can get our affairs right.
Get you.
The reason why we're having to choose is like that decision I spoke to you about earlier, to say ugogo must decide which umntana ndiyamsa university or nthatha le mali ndothenga cabbage namagrosa so that the kids can eat. That is a position we've put ourselves in because economically we're not able to fend for ourselves first. And now we're having to choose between doing the right thing and doing the urgent thing. The urgent thing is that we need to make sure that the kids can go to school. NAFSAS must pay. We make sure that SASA pays people out, right? So those are the urgent things to do. But even going outside to help in the continent is the right thing to do. Why must we be made to choose between what's urgent and what's right? But we find ourselves in that position as a country. And that's because we have not lived up to our potential. And I said, even in response in the SONA, that we should not be measuring ourselves against any developed country or developing country. We should be measuring ourselves against our own potential. And our own potential tells us that we can, if we do the right thing, we can look after bread and butter issues at home, as well as our moral responsibility to the continent. We can do that in an environment and in an economy that is grown to the point of fulfilling the potential of South Africa.
You're saying something so important on foreign nationals, which is a hot issue in South Africa. And what you're saying is very interesting, how we sometimes misdirect our anger towards the foreign nationals themselves instead of the people who caused the conditions in their home countries for them to find themselves
and those
in
who
a foreign
enable
land,
it
and then those who enable
in South Africa.
So our anger should be directed to the right people. Say the issue we're having is these are the very people, the foreign, some of them, who are selling expired food to our children, who are involved in drug trafficking, and so we find ourselves without a choice but to be angry at them as well. What can we do about this issue of foreign nationals, or maybe say illegal foreign nationals in South Africa?
The same thing we do with legal South Africans who are here. Law and order. In terms of entering the country with counterfeit goods, that's something else that needs to be looked into. Our ports, our borders are porous. Things come in and out that police officers sometimes turn the other cheek. Sometimes there are envelopes that are swapped and exchanged at border control. And these are allegations. I can't prove them, but these are the discussions that continue where people will tell you that I can even bring a dead body into the country or take it out if I want to. Those are what people are saying on the ground. That's what they're saying on the ground. So what we need to do is make sure that there's law and order. The last thing we want is vigilantism. Because if I then have got an issue with you, and I decide Dumi is from I don't know, I'm guessing, Eastern Cape, or wherever. He's from Eastern Cape. Why atati misebenzi ya la Gauteng? I get a couple of people together, then we now turn on you because I've now labeled you an outsider, etc., without having proven whether or not you are selling things that are expired, etc. Yes. So taking the law into our own hands doesn't assist in any way. Yeah. And even when people are wrong, even when people are selling expired goods and they're selling foods that are contraband or drugs even, we ought to have law enforcement officials that we can go to and say, there's a drug den, please deal with it. Our law enforcement officers go there, clean it up. We know what the entire justice system makes sure to flush these people out of the system, whether they're illegal, whether they're South African, regardless of where they're from. That should be the case. But now we are hearing stories. Now, Connor, you speak to the people in the Cape Flats. They'll tell you, these cops, the ones who are being paid by the drug lords, the ones who get paid a protection fee.
Listen.
So yes, we'll be upset with those who are selling illegal foods, and that's wrong. Yeah. That should not be tolerated and accepted. It matters not what black, white, South African, foreigner, matters not who's doing it. It's wrong.
It's a law and
but
order
if
issue.
we had a system in South Africa that is able to identify those who are wrong, even when the community, because police can't be everywhere. Yes. Let's be honest. They can't be everywhere.
It is a community effort.
It's a community effort.
That's what we don't understand
We
yet.
then go to the police to say, we've identified uthengisa into illegal or some drugs or whatever the case may be. And the police is supposed to make sure that thing is dealt with. Yeah. But in the absence of law enforcement officials who are able to work with the community in that manner and make sure that we flush out people who sell things that are expired, things that are illegal, who are involved in any acts of criminality. Unless we have that, we'll just continue to be fighting against each other, and you'll even have systems where there's now blame game and false accusations, not only against the foreigners, even among ourselves as South Africans. We will start to say, Abasa Eastern Cape, So that's why it's important. It has to have law enforcement in it.
I get you. Right. You gave us a baby here called How to Save a Life. Reflections of a Change Agent. That's the book by Ayanda Allie. Please get it. Where is it available?
It's available online. It's on Amazon. Nice. And I've put details also on social media for local delivery.
Awesome. Well, we'll put those details on the screen as well.
Yes, thank you.
Tell us about this. What is this about? How long did you have this pregnancy in you?
Sure. I was just saying to you, I just had to get that baby out of me at some stage. So I had been toying with the idea of putting this together for a couple of years, but it was never pressing and it was never urgent. I think when we went through COVID, I was suddenly, hit with the reality of our mortality, all of us.
Food.
And there was reflection about my own fallibility, my own frailty, etc., as an individual, but also that of this organization that we had spent years putting together. I think we were 5 or 6 years then. And I thought, so you mean to tell me, Guti, it can close and it will be like we never existed, like we've not captured the essence of what we managed to do in Dobsonville. I need you to understand the work that my team has done there. They enabled first-time graduates in families. They enabled children who were not really passionate about academia or even thought about studying further to develop love and passion. We saw children become leaders. We saw them take, different spaces and it was magical. It was wonderful. It was
so the book mainly captures the story.
The book captures that story.
Bukobami
Youth Center. Yeah. And so I thought I just want to write a tribute to everybody who has walked this journey with us, sharing my own reflections of the challenges, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between of doing development work, because it is tough, it is hard. You see the pictures of, we're doing this, Korea Day, etc. You don't know the half. And so we wanted to do that. So just share my own reflections, speak about the work that we do, but also hear from people who've contributed to any do good initiative, and including Bukobani. So we spoke to someone who is in business and was one of the donors, and they share what they're looking for when giving and donating, and some tips on how to ensure sustainability of an organization. We speak to someone who was a principal at one of the schools that were our feeder schools, and she speaks about what needs to reform and what needs to change, and how other organizations can address some of those challenges. We spoke to people who were on the ground through Kids Hub is one of our sister organizations as well. They do similar work with younger people. So we also glean from the wisdom of so many different people who led transformation and change in different sectors. I mean, you don't have to start an organization for you to make a difference. You can make a difference where you are. And so we hear from people who are saying, I started this, I did that, I did this, I did that. And we all contribute. We speak about the pitfalls, what to avoid. Learn from our school fees. That's the
power of a book.
Yes.
Power of mentoring, power of reading.
Exactly.
You'll get the lessons on someone else's bill.
I tell you the mistakes I made. I'm raw. I'm honest on what we what we did wrong and how to fix it. And then there's always like a points to ponder section at the end of it where we ask you the question, how do you think you should do this? Or how should you apply this better? And so the book then became a how-to manual for those who want to start any for good initiative. And it became a companion to those who are already on the journey and want to keep going, you know. And plus people would ask me, what do I need to do this? I want to start this. What advice would you have? Now I can whip out the book and say,
here's the manual.
Here you go.
How does social entrepreneurship look like when it's done right?
Social entrepreneurship, when it's done right, firstly is profitable.
Right.
It's profitable.
Now that's where people would want to make you feel bad as the social entrepreneur. Why are you making money over helping? Can't you just help?
You have to make money because you have to be sustainable.
Everything costs money.
Everything costs money. Because I want to save the world. It costs money
to
save
fly
the world.
to the world.
To fly to the world. But also, when you're able to be sustainable as an entity and donor dependent, you are able to execute your vision as per what you feel led to do and what is needed in the community, not based on what somebody thinks you should do. You know, during that time when it's July and it's Mandela month and people want to paint again and again and again, and you're like, no, we just painted the center. What we really need is someone to help us with the ceiling and the roof. And they say, no, but we want to paint. And then you say, now we must accept the paint because this person wants to paint and we don't have money for ourselves and we need their money, so we're now So to lead change initiative, you have to find an avenue that brings in some money. It's still a battle for us. We're still trying. We did things like a bakery. We did things like an ICT computer lab, etc. Because when the money comes in, we're better able to help the learners. So that is absolutely important. So any initiative that's social entrepreneurship, try as much as you can to have profit. Then you need to target your intervention to meet a particular need. And that can only be informed by the bottom-up approach. They always say you must don't give a man a fish, you must teach them how to fish. Social entrepreneurship takes it a step back and says, ask the people whether or not they eat fish, first and foremost. Do you eat fish before I teach you how to fish? And,
I like that.
You know what I mean? So you're like, oh no, we're going to teach you how to fish. And then the people are like, we don't even got to see here. Like there's not even body of water. We're vegan.
We don't eat fish.
We don't eat fish, So what social entrepreneurship needs to do is to really hear from those you want to serve what freedom looks like for them. What empowerment looks like for them. Bottom up approach. So it becomes an amalgamation of your top down intervention with their bottom up approach. You meet each other halfway. You have impact.
I think that's one of the key things missing in government. I don't want to keep going back to these politics things, but definitely we are told we are going to do this for you. But has there been enough contribution?
We have
because
so many
where
white
there
elephants.
is bottom up contribution, And you'll see it with the buy-in.
Yeah.
Buy-in is higher because yinto yethu manje.
Absolutely. We have so many white elephants and things that were created, etc., without consulting those who are going to use that structure. And then you find, here's a nice shelter where you have created space for vendors to sell their craft, but they're still selling their craft outside of that structure.
How many taxi ranks are just vacant, sitting there, not doing anything?
There was one, I don't remember where it was, and this taxi rank, they built a state-of-the-art structure and it was wonderful, etc. People were still buying ngaphandle. And over a small thing like ventilation, but not ventilation, like must figure to next saying it's study motor. Imoto they idle for a while, because the foot to man. We can't breathe when it's like this. You never thought to ask us.
Simple.
Breathe.
There was one like that in Bloemfontein.
Yeah.
While I was staying in Bloemfontein, there was one like that for years. I don't know if they're using it now, but in the middle of town, center of town, beautiful.
Yeah.
But this guy said no.
No.
We can't turn our quantums.
Thank you.
The other small taxis can, but our quantums can't turn because it was triple story.
Exactly.
Looks nice.
Looks nice. But not bottom up. So people are like, thank you, but no thanks, So, and that's a problem. And not even just for government. In fact, even when you're creating a mall, a shopping complex, etc., involve them in town planning.
Everything.
When you're creating roads, I marvel all the time, that are being made, etc. And there's nowhere for it takes to pull it over, So if you know there's a traffic light and there's a garage and there's more nodes this side where people are going to go off, so likely it takes why ungayenzi a little section where the taxi can pull over? Now the taxi pulls over Lana and then we all get frustrated as residents. So definitely that bottom-up approach is important. Yeah. So as a social entrepreneur, be solving for something. Make sure that whatever you're solving for has incorporated what people need on the ground and try and be profitable so that you can help. I think that for me is what social entrepreneurship is.
There's a chapter here, chapter 11, you called it Daredevil.
Yeah.
Tell me about this daredevil inside of you.
Wow.
That seemingly... it's the daredevil that gets things done.
It's the daredevil that gets things done.
We have to be audacious, right?
We do. Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Courage.
Nothing ventured, nothing
That's
gained.
the ingredient, courage.
Courage is important, and also not only the courage to do, but the courage to fail.
Man.
The courage to fail. You know. Maybe this is a research I must look into. One of the fundamental differences between black and white youngsters who are going out there into the world and who are starting businesses, etc., is the courage to fail. And I'm generalizing here. That's why I must research this a bit more. But my understanding is that if you know that when I fail here, I'm going to be applauded for trying, and that failure is not frowned upon in my circle, in my network, and that there is a safety net that will catch me when I fail, either because there's a trust fund or there's a working mom or dad or whatever the case may be, I am more likely to take a calculated risk and jump if that's my circumstance.
Yes.
But mawuvele Soweto then you decide ukuthi mina ngizovula iCarwash ezoba so and then ngizofaka isound nan. There are already people who are looking at you like
uzophelela.
So
why do we celebrate each other's failures as black people, particularly black people? I'm sorry.
So that's and I think to myself, so that's the first thing you're going to when you fail and this thing doesn't work, this innovation doesn't work, there's no one who's going to say high five for trying. Now, let's look at it again and say,
failure is a lesson.
Failure is a lesson, and it must be encouraged and it must be celebrated. That's the first thing. And the second thing, I'm sure the resources that are put into this thing, and that person is less likely to have grace. Maybe it's because of limited resources. To say, Ntwana, it was school fees. Sure. It's okay. You learned. Let's keep going. You know, whereas perhaps in another circle in South Africa, there is that safety net, there's that buffer. So entrepreneurs, black entrepreneurs in particular, need to be supported and encouraged in a way that allows them to explore. If you can't venture out and try what has never been done before, you don't know what you'll be able to achieve, and I mean, I speak to people who in the mining sector all the time, but if you want to find minerals, you first have to look on top of the surface, then you survey it, then I heard from someone that you pay millions for excavating or something, where you drill and dig deep, and there's a chance that you can find hey, this is a mine that will give me a lifespan of 20 years, etc. But other times you do this exercise and you realize there's nothing worth telling. You flushed 2 million.
Yes. Gone.
I would not be okay.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But they understand. risk versus reward, and they make those contingencies to say, because if this works, it will really work. If it doesn't, it's a lesson learned. So we need to encourage and cultivate a spirit among our young people, especially coming up, to say failure is a lesson. It should be encouraged. You learn how not to do something.
Absolutely.
That means you're a step closer to knowing how to do that thing. And when we can have that as a culture, we'll see more entrepreneurs. It's not because, as black people, they are not thinkers, they are not creative, etc. No, we've got ideas. We have vision. We want to achieve, and all over rural areas, township, you name it. We need a network that really cultivates that within us. And I think then we'll start to see more jobs. We'll start to see more entrepreneurs. We'll start to see more ventures that blossom, that bloom, that bud all around us. And we'll start to see a change. So the Daredevil is actually a contribution made by one of my friends who's in corporate, and he's always the one who's taking risks, and and the wisdom he shares is like, you need to go for it. Make sure you make the money, make sure you make the impact. That's how you're going to help. That's how you're going to solve the problems. The world is waiting, but they're not waiting for a broke version of you. They're waiting for a version of you that is self-actualized and that is able to open doors for others and lower the ladder so people can climb up.
It's been amazing sitting with you and talking with you. We are going to do this again. I owe you a brunch or something.
Yes, please. Coffee was good, though. I enjoyed the coffee.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Let's jump in. That is Ayanda Allie. I don't even know how to describe her. Multidimensional individual. She is an author. She is a musician. Now a politician. She is a journalist. She's a media practitioner. She is all these things, all for the glory of God and for the love of people. And we are looking forward to what's going to come out of her. So please follow her on all her social media platforms. Follow her work. Support where you can and be part of the journey. The book is available, How to Save a Life, Reflections of a Change Agent, available on Amazon, and the details for how you can get a hard copy delivered to you will be on the screen. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we really appreciate your time. Ayanda, God bless you.
Thank you so much. God bless you too.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye.